They saw a huge human eye in the sky. Yes, I'm talking about a dark living pupil that seemed to move in the sky. Something that grew and shrank in size as if it was searching for something there. There is a military base in Hawaii that mysteriously studies God every 6 hours. A military base in Hawaii that mysteriously studies God every 6 hours. In a fantastic apparition, which I would say is almost ghostly, they managed to capture a huge eye in the sky. And after that, things got really crazy. I am Carol Capel, your favorite alien who studies gods. Welcome everyone to another video that starts right now here on this channel. In today's video, we're going to dive deep into this case that is, in my humble opinion, one of the creepiest cases I've ever told here on this channel. If we even have a ranking, if we're even keeping count, right? Yeah, so in Hawaii, there's a famous volcano called Mauna Kea. With its 4,207 meters of altitude and clear atmosphere, it's the perfect, ideal place for any kind of astronomical observation. And a total of 13, which is actually a very mystical number, don't you think? 13 state-of-the-art telescopes, including some of the largest and most advanced in the world, are there on that volcano, supposedly to study the cosmos, the origin of the universe, black holes, exoplanets, and so on and so forth. 11 countries joined forces in this endeavor, investing billions of dollars, a peaceful international collaboration in search of knowledge. I'm not sure if it's truly in pursuit of knowledge. What happens is that this volcano is one of the most sacred places in Hawaii. For the Hawaiian people, the native Hawaiian people, the indigenous people, Mauna Kea is not just a tall mountain. It is an ancestor, a living and sacred entity that is the highest representation of the connection between the sky, Ani, and the earth, Honua. Its name, Mauna Kea, which means white mountain, referring to the snow that often covers its summit, is a symbol of purity and holiness. It is the navel, the Wakea, that is the Sky Father, who together with Papahānaumoku, the Earth Mother, give rise to the island of Hawaii, and by extension, to the Hawaiian people. In other words, this volcano is the point of origin, the cradle of creation, according to Hawaiian culture. The official name of the Mauna Kea Telescope Complex is the Mauna Kea Observatories, or the MKO. And when they started building this military base, which I wouldn't even call an observatory, okay, because this place really is a military base. When they started building that place, there were a lot of protests from the Hawaiian community. It was a real scandal for the local culture that the military was going to build telescopes in a place that, for them, is the most sacred spot on the island. But despite that, even so, the authorities decided to go ahead with the construction and put all those telescopes on sacred ground. And National Aeronautics and Space Administration became a significant partner of this observatory. They not only invested money there, but they also have representatives on the board and the management of that place. But the discoveries made at this place are publicly accessible, even though National Aeronautics and Space Administration is an agency that belongs to the government, meaning National Aeronautics and Space Administration is not a private agency. What happened is that the people responsible for the Keck-1 and Keck-2 telescopes, which are two of those 13 telescopes located at the top of Mauna Kea. In fact, Keck-1 and Keck-2 are the two most powerful telescopes in this system, warned that they detected a small distortion in the measurements of the Keck telescope. At first, Dr. Kerr's team, who is the lead researcher and responsible for this specific telescope, ignored these distortions, assuming they were just a flaw in the main lens of the telescope. But when the telescope started to have constant failures, they decided to investigate further and increase the resolution of the images on the screen. And what did they see? Well, when they increased the resolution of the images on the screen, they saw a huge human eye in the sky. Yes, I'm talking about a dark, living pupil that seemed to move in the sky. Something that grew and shrank in size as if it was searching for something there. At first, the team thought this was just a pareidolia effect. Pareidolia, as you may know, is a psychological phenomenon where our brain interprets ambiguous or random stimuli as recognizable and meaningful patterns. And the biggest example of this is when we see faces in clouds and in objects, like, for example, electrical outlets. You look at the outlet and see a little face, right? Or patterns in stains. For example, you have a stain somewhere, then you look at that stain and say, wow, it looks like a poodle. Yeah, that's pareidolia. This happens when the human brain tries to identify specific patterns. And the human brain is very trained to identify especially faces, precisely to help us navigate this very obscure world. So, at first, when they saw that eye in the sky, they thought, no, that can only be pareidolia. And in situations of visual uncertainty, pareidolia fills in the gaps with things it knows, creating a perception that doesn't correspond to the objective reality of the stimulus that's actually being seen. It's a really fun trick of our mind that makes us see things where there is no meaning. But after several observations of this eye in the sky, they realized it wasn't pareidolia. Because 6 hours later, this so-called eye appeared again. And then they no longer had any room for doubt. And every exact 6 hours, this eye would open among the stars and look directly at the telescope. The frightened scientists then began to wonder if our entire universe was nothing more than a laboratory experiment, where something or someone at a higher level of consciousness or even existence had created our cosmos as a scientific project, as a kind of simulation, a sort of matrix. These scientists had then discovered, thanks to this telescope, a flaw in the simulation, a mistake that would make us awaken forever from our cosmic prison. After all these observations, the frightened scientists realized that our universe is inside a glass jar, a kind of glass dome forgotten on some dusty shelf. And at a certain moment, Dr. Kerr's team decided to activate the infrared filter of the TEC-1 telescope. And with this endeavor, they wanted to try to see what was beyond that eye they were seeing in the sky. And what they saw was even more frightening. They were able to see not just an eye, but a whole face. A whole face that was stuck to the membrane, stuck to the vein of the Milky Way, stuck in the fabric of our universe. It was a face that looked at Earth with a certain detachment, with a somewhat inert expression. And then they realized that they hadn't accessed gods or God. They realized that it wasn't gods who were watching us, but rather they realized that they were children. All those faces were children's faces. And then fear took over the entire team of scientists, to the point that they erased all of their research. They shut down all 13 telescopes, closed the entire research complex, the attached facilities, and blocked the entrances, the access points there, and the entry of employees to the site. They also prohibited any direct observation using that telescope. They paused all investigation for an entire year until the full reactivation of the complex. But the eye is still there. It appears every 6 hours or so, and it just stares fixedly at the telescope lens. And with those claims, an extremely wild and extremely disturbing theory emerged, which was proposed by Dr. Kerr himself and his team. He proposes that God is not a conscious being, nor an elder sitting on his throne, or a loving force. Loving, we already know he's not, right? Let's be honest, things are pretty bad here, aren't they? If all of this is out of love, imagine what comes through pain, right? Well, for them, for the research team, God is simply a young mind or a childlike consciousness playing a game there without fully understanding the rules. Like The Sims, a little computer simulation game created for kids to play. For a child who knows they're playing with us, but a child who plays with us without knowing the love or the pain they cause. Like when you're playing The Sims and then you remove the ladder from the pool so your Sims die in the pool just for fun? Yeah, it's exactly the same analogy. They say the universe wasn't created out of love, but rather out of careless curiosity. Maybe God, in this context, neither loves us nor hates us nor anything at all. Because to him, we are as insignificant as a decoration on a dusty shelf. He walks by, he even looks at it from time to time, but he doesn't even care to dust it off. It's heavy, I know, but the case is real, and people quietly talk about this military base with all those telescopes. In this video, I'm not here to explain anything. On the contrary, I'm here to stir up chaos. I sincerely hope I fulfilled my role. I'm going to say goodbye to you all and retreat into the insignificance of my existence on God's shelf. And I'll see you then, God willing, of course, in our next videos. Bye.